His pockets have been found like stuffed with $500,000 worth of cash and a lot of gold bars.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Potentially,
That's just his emergency fund, according to him.
Have you ever wanted a podcast that did it all? Sports, politics, world events. Well, you have come to the right place, because you are listening to C&C Talks.
hello, I'm Colin,
And I'm Charlie.
and welcome to the C&C Talks podcast. This is episode 31 of season 2, and it's the first of 10 more episodes left this season, with roughly 13 weeks left in the year. So do the math on that, but we have episodes most weeks from here till the end of the year, Charlie.
Yes, we do. And just reminders, every week we release every Wednesday, and we talk about politics, world events, and sports. However, we will be releasing on Tuesday this week because the size of this video, and also because of shifting things going on all the time in the world of politics and in the world of sports. We'll get that out as soon as we can. Of course, we missed last week. Today's Monday, October 2nd, 2023, at about 8:30 p.m. Pacific time.
Yeah, and we'll hope to get that out Tuesday. It might be late, but hopefully we'll be able to get that out by Tuesday morning. It'll have to be a very quick turnaround for us, but let's get into a very, very busy episode, Charlie, because when we finally took a week off, the news, let's just say it did not take a week off.
Oh, it certainly did not. Let's start with the possible government shutdown being averted. Kevin McCarthy finally was able to get Democrats on his side and pass a temporary bill to keep the government open until November. They will still need to vote on a long-term one in November, which, again, due to those far-right Republicans blocking the previous attempts, still looks unlikely unless McCarthy can again renegotiate with the Democrats.
Yeah, Charlie, you brought up two, I think, really important points on this. Number one, you said temporary. Yes, they will have to do this all again in November. We came 3 hours away from a shutdown this time, and we weren't even close to actually passing a budget. All we got was a continuing resolution to keep the government open short term. And so we're not really any closer to actually having a budget. We just have to do this again in November, with or without a Speaker of the House. We'll get to that in a minute. The other key here, Charlie, what you mentioned, was the working with Democrats part. McCarthy did not want to work with Democrats on this. He wanted to pass it along with Republicans, and he put a lot of right-wing things in this. But even then, the divides in the Republican Party are so deep right now that he was still not able to get the far-right Republicans to agree to it. And even if he had, it didn't have a prayer at passing the Senate or getting signed by President Biden. So he pivoted, and he went to Democrats for help. And ultimately, every Democrat but one voted for this bill. 91 Republicans opposed this bill, took out all of the far-right things that the Freedom Caucus had wanted in it. The only real thing that Democrats are upset about in this bill is the lack of funding for Ukraine, Charlie.
Yeah, and that is a key point. The Democrats will see if they can iron out with the Republicans as well. Of course, that is still up in the air, but they do have till November to see if they could possibly work out a deal, and hopefully we won't have to repeat this cycle again.
I think we all know very well that we will be repeating this cycle again, though, Charlie.
Yes.
I alluded to it. Who will the Speaker of the House be in November? Well, Matt Gaetz, tonight, as of when we're recording this, has filed a motion to vacate the chair in the House of Representatives. This basically means a motion to remove Kevin McCarthy from the speakership. And the House will have roughly 48 hours to vote on this motion. And really, it's unclear how this vote is going to go. It looks like there is Republican support for this, not necessarily a lot of Republican support for this, maybe somewhere in the range of a dozen votes. But that's enough. It means that McCarthy is going to have to convince some Democrats to vote for him to remain, if he wants to remain in the speakership. And how will Democrats vote? We don't really know. We know that a lot of far-left Democrats are probably going to vote against McCarthy we haven't really seen anything official from Democratic leadership, from Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Minority Whip Catherine Clark. We just haven't seen anything. But Charlie, it would seem to me that the Democrats, they kind of have to play they have to play hardball on this. They have to try to get concessions out of McCarthy in exchange for votes to remain in the speakership, and if they can't do that, then encourage their members to vote against McCarthy and remove him from the speakership. Again, this is the Republican circus, right? The circus has come to Washington, Charlie, and it's the Republicans' job to deal with it.
Yes, it is. In other news from Congress, New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez has been indicted on, I believe, what has he been charged with?
It's bribery, and like pretty bad bribery, Charlie. Like we're talking, his pockets have been found like stuffed with $500,000 worth of cash and a lot of gold bars.
Yeah, don't worry about it. That's just his emergency fund, according to him.
Yeah, potentially taking bribes from foreign powers, which would seem to be treasonous. And several Democrats, in fact, well over 30 Democrats have now called on Menendez to resign. 30 Democratic senators, that is. Lots of other members of the House and other people, such as members of the New Jersey State Party. Menendez so far has said that not only is he not going anywhere, he'll continue to run for re-election because he's up in 2024, which just seems wild. But right, these are serious accusations against Senator Menendez, Charlie. And one other point, no Republican has called on him to resign, probably because it's probably not great optics for the Republican Party to be encouraging somebody to resign because they were indicted right now, given all that's going on in that party.
Yeah, it certainly would not look good for them to be calling on other parties to resign when, of course, they have all of their problems as well. And
their problems are numerous.
Yes, and even more news from the Senate. California Senator Dianne Feinstein has died at the age of 90. Was it 90 or 91?
She died, I believe it was 90. And we can, of course, point out that she, at the end of her career, was not in top shape, not even close to it. A lot of memory problems. But that should not take away from what was just a legendary career, a historic career, fighting gun violence, all sorts of other causes, including feminist causes. Just a legendary career from Dianne Feinstein, who will definitely be missed.
And of course, now that leads us to who is replacing her then?
Yeah, so that decision is up to the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. He will appoint the replacement until the election in 2024. And he has named his replacement. That will be LaFonza Butler. Now, who is LaFonza Butler? She is the president of Emily's List. That is a organization that helps elect pro-choice women. She graduated from an HBCU. She's a black woman, and she is openly gay, which will make her the first openly gay senator from the state of California and the first black lesbian senator, period. So really, Charlie, a historic appointment from Gavin Newsom here.
Absolutely it is. And then, of course, there's a possibility that she will also run again in 2024, which seems likely.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, Charlie, there's already a crowded field running for that seat in 2024. Adam Schiff, Katie Porter, Barbara Lee. We don't anticipate any of those candidates dropping out because of this. So this could be a very crowded Democratic primary field in California in 2024.
It very well could. Now, as we always seem to have to do when we talk about politics, it's time to talk about Donald Trump. What's he up to now?
I was hoping we could avoid this, but yeah, we do.
What is he up to now?
Yeah, so might remember a while ago, Letitia James, Attorney General of the state of New York, filed a civil suit against Trump for alleging massive fraud in his businesses, basically overinflating the value of his businesses in the state of New York. Now, last week, the judge in this case reached what's called summary judgment, which basically means the facts aren't in dispute here, so I'm going to give a ruling. Or this was partial summary judgment. Explain why in a sec. But basically, the judge ruled Trump would lose his business certification in New York because he's liable for bank fraud. That the businesses they're going to be placed in a court-funded receivership. But now he's on trial. Now in that same case, this is for the financial damages, which I believe are up to over $200 million that the state of New York wants Trump and the Trump organization to have to pay. And that trial off to an absolutely terrible start for Trump because he meant to ask for a jury trial. That's in civil court. That is not a guarantee. In criminal court it is, but in civil court it is not. Unfortunately, Trump's lawyer, Alina Habba, forgot to ask for that. Like, she just forgot. So Trump will not have a civil trial. Trump will not have a jury trial. Just incompetence at its finest.
Yeah, that does seem like a big mistake, and we will, of course, keep up to date on that as it continues. We actually have more news about him, Colin. Even more.
He illegally purchased a gun. You cannot purchase a gun while under federal felony indictment. That is a federal crime. He's on video doing it. His spokespeople posted it. Now they're saying he didn't actually purchase it. Well, then why did you say he did?
Yeah, and then, of course, this really does not help the Republicans trying in their attempt to attack Hunter Biden for a very similar thing.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, no, you're right about that.
We also have some news now regarding the United Auto Workers strike. Biden was at the picket line last week. He joined, and Trump was actually also in Michigan speaking at a non-union plant, as well as those two make bids in Michigan as an attempt to reach out to voters there. Of course, Trump won that in 2016, and Biden won Michigan in 2020, but not by much.
No, definitely not by much. Michigan, crucial state. Obviously, what the UAW is doing, this is a pretty big deal, has a massive effect on the auto industry. We've never seen a president walk a picket line with striking workers before. We have now seen that in a truly historic moment. And in another strike, Charlie, the writers' strike has come to an end. Writers getting so much of what they wanted. This was a huge deal how this strike came to an end.
Absolutely. Now, moving on. The second GOP debate was last Tuesday. It really does not matter, does it?
It really does not. We can give a quick recap, but the point is it doesn't matter. Charlie, the two people that benefited most from this debate, Donald Trump and Joe Biden. It helps Donald Trump in the primary. It's going to help Joe Biden in the general election. That's what this debate did. That's it.
Yeah, so it really brings up the point, then why are they still having these? If the front runner isn't showing up, it's not changing anything in the polls, so what's the point?
TV ratings, I guess. I mean, they are pulling in significant ratings for no clear reason because these candidates don't have a chance. This debate, DeSantis, he looked awkward as usual. Christie was okay until he made a couple ill-advised comments, one calling Trump Donald Duck, the other one attacking Biden for sleeping with a member of a teachers union. The context there is that his wife is a member of a teachers union. It only got more awkward when Mike Pence, of all people, then said that he's also been sleeping with a teacher for 38 years. That, of course, being his wife. But that's a very awkward thing, Charlie, for Mike Pence to say.
This whole field is just a mess. It really is. Now, we only have a few things left in this politics section. Let's go to Alabama, where the Supreme Court has rejected their congressional map again. Colin, can we get a little bit more on exactly what Alabama is doing, why the Supreme Court doesn't like it, and why this has happened again?
Yeah, so Alabama, they created a congressional map, and they were sued for it, and it was ruled against them that it was unconstitutional because it was a racial gerrymander. They needed to add another black seat, but they were able to delay it until after the 2022 election. Then they went to the Supreme Court. It got to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled against them because, of course, the Supreme Court ruled against them. But then Alabama basically said, yeah, so this ruling here that the Supreme Court did, this is optional. Like this is not like some required thing. It's not like it's a Supreme Court order or anything. It's optional. And the court system was not impressed with this, and it got back to the Supreme Court, and Alabama lost again in what was somewhat of a scathing ruling towards the state of Alabama. Now they basically have no choice. They don't even get to be in full control of drawing their own congressional districts anymore. There will be a second black majority congressional district in the state of Alabama, so likely another district for Democrats, Charlie.
Given voter trends, that seems incredibly likely. Now, for our final political story, the Republicans have been moving on with the attempt to impeach Biden. There was a hearing on that. Colin, how exactly disastrously did this go?
You want like on a scale of 1 to 10 or something?
Yeah.
All right, so if we're saying that 1 is like the least disastrous and 10 is the most disastrous, this was maybe a 10,000. This did not go well for Republicans. It basically started with their star witness, Jonathan Turley, basically saying that he has not seen any evidence that suggests that the conduct by Joe Biden has risen even close to an impeachable offense. That's basically how it started, and it didn't get better from there. Democrats owned the place. They were the only ones that had anything notable to say. James Comer, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee conducting the investigation, did not look ready for prime time. He didn't even seem to know the rules of his own committee. This was sad and pathetic.
All right. Well, those are for the politics section. Let's move on to sports.
Yeah, but Charlie, I do have 2 really quick points before we move on to sports. A couple of stories that we just haven't discussed. First of all, polling networks. Get your polls right, please. When you release a poll, and I'm specifically directing this at the ABC News Washington Post poll that came out last week. When you release a poll that is so clearly an outlier, had Trump up by 12 points and Trump winning Gen Z voters by 30 points, right? We know that that's not going to happen. Trump is not going to win Gen Z voters by 30 points. Even they admitted that it's an outlier. You have the option of not publishing the poll. They haven't had a reliable poll since early this year. Their last 2 polls they've considered to be outliers. This isn't a good polling network, and frankly, this is something that at this point they're just doing it for ratings. And it's becoming increasingly clear to me that the media would love nothing more than a second Trump administration. After all, Trump is great for ratings. What they may be overlooking, at least in my opinion, is that the media won't be in a great state in a second Trump administration because the attacks on the media will be like nothing we have ever seen before. Second quick point. We are now just a few weeks away from the 2023 elections, which will be on, I believe, November 7th of this year. Now, you might be wondering, well, there's no presidential election, there's no congressional elections. Why should I vote in these elections if I'm eligible to vote in these elections? What's the point? Well, it depends a lot on where you live, but in a lot of places, there are mayoral elections, elections for city council, elections for school boards, elections for the people that supervise elections. These are all hugely important positions, Charlie. Make your voices heard on them. These have a lot of impact on where you live. So please vote and get to know the candidates that are running and vote.
All right, let's move on.
Yes.
So while we were gone, the NFL decided to set itself on fire.
It's been a wild season, Charlie.
Where do you want to start? Let's start with a team that put up 70 points. 70. 7-0.
Yeah. Against the Broncos, so it doesn't really count. The Broncos defense is really bad. One of the worst I've ever seen.
Yes, and then the Broncos did turn around and beat the Bears, but, I mean, that's not much of an achievement.
Yeah. Hey, let's remember, after Sean Payton came in, he fired the Broncos defensive coordinator from last season, which had like one of the best defenses in the league, and brought in a new defensive coordinator. And it hasn't been going well for that defense.
Absolutely not.
And at this point, I don't even think it's mostly a Russell Wilson thing.
No, Wilson has looked good.
Decent. He has not been the old Russell Wilson. I don't think we're ever seeing that again. But it has been an improvement this season from the absolutely disastrous performance last year. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I agree with that. Where else? Where else? Eagles stay undefeated. 49ers stay undefeated. The Cowboys lose to the Cardinals.
Oof.
The Jets are awful.
Done.
The
However, I
Giants
gotta
got
say, Zach
obliterated
Wilson's
and then
looking
got
better.
obliterated again.
Who?
The Giants.
Yeah, no, the Giants. Let's talk a little bit about that Monday Night Football game that you and I just both finished watching. Because, Charlie, this is the first time this year I've actually watched a Giants game from start to finish. Oh, my God, they're bad. Like, it's really bad.
Daniel Jones got sacked 11 times.
And threw, what, 3 interceptions?
The Seahawks D-line wasn't supposed to be that good, and they're not that good.
Yeah. Seahawks won that game with basically none of their offensive line playing. But their starting quarterback
none
was
of
hurt
their
for a
team.
while.
The entire Seahawks team is injured.
It was like the Giants A team versus the Seahawks preseason team, and the Seahawks won by a lot.
The Giants, so far this season, have 6 first-half points.
That is wild.
I'm pretty sure that they only have 6 first-half points. Week 1, they lost 40-0. Week 2, they were down 28. I think 28-something going into half. I think 28-3, and they lost. They got obliterated by the Niners, and then they put up 3 points the entire game against Seattle.
It's sad. It's really quite pathetic what they've put up. Charlie, you mentioned the Dolphins. Sure, they had a great week last week, but they were really shut down by the Bills this week. What do you make of that division race that's clearly heating up, and it's looking more and more like a 2-team race? We thought this could be among the more competitive divisions. It's not turning out that way.
No, it certainly is not. The Patriots and Jets are just really struggling. Of course, the Jets built their entire season around Aaron Rodgers. He goes down on the 4th play of the season. Can't really expect much there. The Patriots, Mac Jones has struggled. That defense has struggled. They don't look good. Their only win is against the Jets. The Jets' only win is because they walked off the Bills.
Yeah, that was a wild, wild game. Bengals, Charlie.
The Bengals are awful somehow because Joe Burrow can't run anymore because he keeps getting injured.
Yeah, do we think that that's the only problem? Because this seems to be a much bigger problem than that, right? It's not just the offense, although the offense is terrible. Their defense isn't particularly good either.
I mean, they started bad the last few seasons and they turned it around. They're 1-3. They play a pretty good Seattle team after their bye week next week, a Seattle team that should probably have some of their injured players back.
Yeah, exactly.
If they don't win week 6, they're done.
Yeah, no, I think that's
also, how on earth through 4 weeks is every team in the AFC South 2-2?
The Jaguars, Charlie, are not the Jaguars that you expected when you drafted them 3 overall.
No, I thought this division was going to be easy, but hey, at least the Texans gave me some points.
Yeah, can we talk about the Texans for a second? Because C.J. Stroud, he has looked really good. He has looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL so far. He's a rookie and hasn't thrown a pick yet. That's wild.
Yeah, some of the only other people to do that through 4 games are Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, exactly.
And none of them in their rookie campaign.
It's been a very, very impressive run for C.J. Stroud so far. Let's talk about a team that's much less impressive, Charlie. Let's go there. Let's go to Chicago.
Oh.
Has the highlight of their season been when they had $100,000 worth of equipment stolen?
I think the highlight of their season was Justin Fields having 2 touchdowns to Cole Kmet. And then they blew a 21-point lead.
It's so bad and pathetic.
The offense
deeply
is
pathetic.
Bad. The coaching is bad. The defense is bad. Justin Fields is bad. Caleb Williams does not want to go to Chicago, and I don't blame him. DJ Moore is bad. The Panthers absolutely fleeced you guys.
Yeah. So we'll get to this more in a little while, but are we still sure that Caleb Williams is the number 1 pick for next year?
No, he is, but he shouldn't be. The number 1 pick should be Michael Penix.
Yeah, I mean, there are some injury concerns there, but Penix has looked objectively better. We will definitely get to college football in just a minute. Let's talk about some of these other games that have been happening recently. Charlie, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been blowing me away, to be honest. They've looked good so far.
They certainly have, and they're one of the teams you have, right? Correct?
Yeah, you have 3 teams from that division, but not the Buccaneers.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
Yeah.
Who knew? You take Baker out of Cleveland, and he's finally a functioning quarterback.
Yeah. So are the
do you
Chargers back?
No, they're not.
Yeah, I'd agree. They've had 2 wins against, let's be honest, subpar teams, and they barely won both of them.
Vikings, who are the definition of abysmal, and against who started for the Raiders? It wasn't Garoppolo.
Was it not?
He got hurt, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's how I don't even care enough to have watched that game. It's not interesting at all. What do you make of the Browns and what's looking more and more like a sad situation in Cleveland?
Well, Deshaun Watson got hurt, I think.
Yeah.
Or something happened because they had their backup in, and he looked not good. I think he's a rookie, but he didn't look good. They got smashed by the Titans, I think, who they were playing.
Yeah.
No.
This week it was the Ravens.
It was the
Ravens.
Ravens.
The Ravens this
they looked
week.
bad. There was a must win divisional game. Didn't win it.
They are 2-2 though.
Cleveland. I mean, by the way, it's the Cleveland Browns. Did we really think they were going to be decent?
I mean, I think that the expectation, the whole thing that they were banking on, Charlie, right, is that Deshaun Watson, with all of his faults, would come back and be what he was before the incidents, and that has not materialized. Maybe you shouldn't have given him as much money as you gave him.
He's had some sparks recently, but no, he is not at the level that they need him to be.
Yeah, no, it's been rough. I'm also, Charlie, still really impressed with the Detroit Lions, with what they've been doing so far early on this season. Let's remember, we're almost a quarter of the way through the season. It's not like it's that early on anymore.
No, it really isn't. Also, just one last thing that I want to mention before we move on for the XFL. Not from the NFL, not the XFL. We'll get to that later, because that's where the Bears should be.
Yeah.
But one last thing I want to mention is that let's go, Bailey Zappi got put in a football game. Let's go.
What's your thing with Bailey Zappi? I don't get it. I just don't see what there is about him.
He was decent, and he won a game, and you hate him for some reason, so I like him now.
I don't hate him. He's just mid. I mean, so is Mac Jones, if we're being completely honest.
Mac Jones got destroyed by the Cowboys defense.
The Cowboys defense is no joke, right? We've got to say that.
All right, let's get to another league that's completely on fire. Baseball.
Yeah. The playoffs are starting, and it's a wild pennant chase. Came down to the last day of the season. Somehow the Astros won the AL West. They'll get a bye. They're the 2 seed. The wild card round matchups, it's going to be the Rangers at the Rays. It's going to be the Blue Jays at the Twins. We'll see if the Twins can finally get a couple playoff wins. And then it's in the National League, it's going to be the Marlins at the Phillies. And then it's going to be the Diamondbacks at the Brewers. So, Charlie, some good matchups. What are your thoughts on those?
Certainly, I think it was interesting. Of course, here in Seattle, we know our thoughts on this playoff picture.
We're not interested in it.
Yeah, I think it'll certainly be a good playoff run. I think, really in the American League and in the National League, I don't really think anyone can beat either Baltimore, Tampa, or Atlanta, or the Dodgers.
The Dodgers. Yeah. I mean, I disagree actually somewhat. I think that the American League is the most wide open we've seen it in years. Astros just have not looked the same. They'll probably get back to the World Series, though, because, of course, they will. But they just haven't looked the same. Orioles, they're a young team. We'll see what they can do. Then below that, it's a bunch of teams with a lot of question marks.
So here's my question, then. Who you got?
To win it all.
Yep.
I know who I want to win it all, which is the Arizona Diamondbacks, but something tells me that they're not going to be there at the end of the day. I think that the Atlanta Braves, they've been consistently good all season. I just don't see anyone that can touch them right now.
I want to agree with that, but baseball is kind of stupid sometimes. Give me the Dodgers.
I mean, that's the thing, Charlie, is baseball is not meant to be played in short series like it's played in the playoffs, right? It's meant to be played over a long season, right? Short series are just they're wild in baseball. Anything can happen over a short stretch. It all depends on who's hot. Baseball's a very
The
streaky
Atlanta
game.
Braves, one of the only series that they lost this year was to the A's.
Exactly. They can truly lose to anyone at any time. It all depends. Are their best hitters hitting? Is
And
there a
while some
game where one of their pitchers self-implodes? You never know.
And while some teams are celebrating making the playoffs, other teams are sending their managers to the curb. That's for the Giants and Angels, and I'm pretty sure the Mets are about to throw their manager off a building.
Yeah, Charlie, can we talk about Buck Showalter for a second? Because he's kind of known as this legendary manager. Is he, though? Is he that good of a manager? What has he ever, actually won? Anything?
I mean, it's the Mets. They never win anything.
But he's been around on many more teams than just the Mets. He managed the Yankees in the 90s. He didn't win a World Series.
The question has to be erased. I really do not think that really he lives up to that status that he has.
Exactly. He's had good teams put around him. The Mets, on paper, were a pretty good team entering this year. What happened? Right? I mean, if you look at the roster at the end of the year, it wasn't great, but that's because they traded everyone away by then. They're just not that great. Now, I finally get to laugh because Phil Nevin has been fired from the Angels, Charlie.
Oh, I know how happy that makes you.
Oh, it makes me... Oh, man. Let's talk about college football for just a minute here. Not a ton of upsets in the last couple of weeks, Charlie. Pretty much stuff playing out kind of how it's supposed to. The exception, LSU is defeated again. They're in real trouble now. Basically, no path to the playoff for them at this point. And then, Charlie, Ohio State, they beat Notre Dame barely last week. What are your thoughts on some of the games in college the last couple of weeks?
Well, I don't know if you noticed this. Notre Dame only had 10 men on the field for the last few plays.
Yeah, no, it was really odd. Never seen anything like it.
So that was a huge mistake for them there. Yeah, really not too much interesting. The higher teams are winning. LSU is awful for some reason, just cannot win when they need to. But yeah, this has been a little bit of a dull stretch. But we are going to get some great games in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and I don't think we've talked either since the epic Colorado implosion, Charlie.
Yikes! It's late night. It's no longer prime time.
It's no longer prime time. I think that they'll make a bowl game this year, and let's be completely honest, Charlie. That is already such a huge step forward for that Colorado program, but it's not quite up to the hype that everyone was making it out to be the first few weeks of the season. Don't get me wrong. This is still, again, a huge step forward for this Colorado program as they move to the Big 12, which is, I'm going to be honest, going to be less competitive than the Pac-12 next year.
Yeah, it is.
And then Georgia, Charlie, they've won, but have you seen anything championship caliber about the way that they've played the last few weeks?
No, the only reason that they won the game against Auburn was because they had that Brock Bowers just went insane.
Yep.
And caught literally every single ball that was in the air for the second half of that game.
Yep, absolutely.
So no, I really do not have any confidence really at all in this Georgia team.
Yeah. We have some sad news to pass along. The deaths of a couple of Major League legends, the Orioles, Brooks Robinson, and Tim Wakefield from the Boston Red Sox. Phenomenal players. Wakefield dying of brain cancer at, I believe, 57, unfortunately. They will be missed.
Yes, they will. Some legends of the sport.
And we'll move on from there with the WNBA playoffs, as we've got a finals matchup set that is going to start on Sunday between the Las Vegas Aces and the New York Liberty. Kind of what everyone had penciled in. at the beginning of the season,
I agree.
came
I'm
true.
surprised by how fast this seems to have gone, because it feels like they only just started.
Yeah, WNBA season, just 40 games in the regular season, just 3 rounds of the postseason. So definitely shorter than the NBA, but the finals are here. It's exciting. 2 really good teams. Liberty won the Commissioner's Cup, the in-season tournament earlier this year. The Aces, defending champions, and just honestly a super team that they've got there in Vegas. It should be a good finals, Charlie.
Yes, it should.
And I think you know what time it is.
Yes, I do. It's Formula One time.
Go ahead.
All right. So we have some big news. We got an 11th team on the grid. Andretti will be joining the grid. I don't know whether it'll be 2025 or 6, maybe 2024. I have no idea. I imagine it will take them a few years, obviously, to set up, get going. But this is great news for the expansion of F1. Now there will be 22 cars on the grid instead of 20. We'll have 11 teams. Great news for the expansion of the sport. Meanwhile, the Japanese Grand Prix happened. Verstappen won. Is anyone surprised? No, they're not. In fact, he can actually win the championship at the next race in Qatar. He can win it in the sprint race, actually, on Saturday if he scores 3 points, meaning he will have to get 5th in that sprint race, which, unless something happens, of course, he will most likely do that and lock up the championship. Now, I think the bigger question here is you really have 4 teams here fighting for second place in the championship. You have the Ferraris, the McLarens, the Aston Martins, and the Mercedes. Those teams are all really close. McLaren has looked great towards the end of the season. Oscar Piastri getting his first podium of his young career in Japan last time out. But yeah, it's going to come down to the wire between those 4 teams, very similar to what happened in 2020 between Racing Point, who became Aston Martin, Renault, which became Alpine, and McLaren again for 3rd place in that championship in 2020, which was another season that was dominated by one team, that being Mercedes.
Yeah, all right. Charlie, let's move on to talk everyone's favorite. Let's talk about some golf, where the Ryder Cup was this past week. It was not great look for the American side. Americans were represented by Scotty Scheffler, Colin Morikawa, Patrick Cantlay, Sam Burns, Max Homa, Brian Harmon, Brooks Koepka, Justin Thomas, Xander Schauffele, Jordan Spieth, Ricky Fowler, and Wyndham Clark, whereas the European side was John Rahm, Victor Hovland, Justin Rose, Rory McIlroy, Matt Fitzpatrick, Tyrrell Hatton, Ludwig Aberg, Sepp Straka, Nikolai Hojgaard, Shane Lowry, Tommy Fleetwood, and Robert McIntyre. This was a drubbing from the European side. U.S. looked okay in Saturday afternoon 4-ball and Sunday singles, so they only lost 16.5 to 11.5, but it was rough before that. The European side swept Friday morning foursomes and took, I believe, 2.5 of the points from Friday afternoon 4-ball, and then 3 of the 4 points from Saturday morning foursomes. It was bad for the U.S. for a long time during this one.
Yeah, really bad loss from the U.S. All right, I'll let you have your little tennis update, and we're gonna get out of here.
Yeah, I think this is the first time, or maybe second, I'm not sure, that we've actually done a tennis update on not a slam. This is the Laver Cup, so another tournament. It's kind of country versus country. This is Team Europe versus Team the rest of the world. Europe represented by Andrei Rublev, Casper Ruud, Hubert Hurkacz, Alejandro Davinovich Fokina, Gael Monfils, and Arthur Fils. And the U.S. side represented by Taylor Fritz, Francis Tiafoe, Tommy Paul, Felix Auger-Aliassime, Ben Shelton, and Francisco Cerundolo. Another drubbing, for this one by Team World. They've now won 2 straight. They didn't even have to play the final 3 matches of the tournament because the U.S. had already clinched such a huge lead. They won 13-2. It's just a drubbing, Charlie.
Absolutely. U.S. gets one back. They lose at golf, but win at tennis.
Yeah, we'll see if that's the case going forward. I was actually pretty surprised, Charlie, by both how well Team World performed in tennis and how poorly the Team U.S. performed in the Ryder Cup.
All right, looks like we're out of time here. Colin, you know what to do.
Yeah, make sure you subscribe to the C&C Talks podcast, because we have episodes coming out every single week wherever you listen to podcasts. And visit our website, cctalks.net, for everything you need to know about the show. And call us with questions, 360-389-2630. Again, that's 360-389-2630. And follow us on whatever we're going to call the platform now, at CC Talks Podcast. And, of course, you can follow Charlie at CC Talks Charlie. For our producer Morris, production designer Zach, and sound designer Drake, I'm Colin.
I'm Charlie, and we'll see you next week.